welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Send us your questions and comments to dj@artistfirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Oh, thank you very much, Z-Man. And here we are.
Here we are.
I must say that we get the most professional introductions.
Yes, we do.
Scott is a true pro, and then we mess it up from that point on. We are rank amateurs. We are not rank amateurs anymore. Now we are experienced amateurs. But we do have fun. And tonight, you didn't even introduce yourself. That's how much of a jerk I am. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Margaret.
She's Margaret. I'm just a jerk.
No, you're not. Stop that.
I have a low blood sugar issue. No, okay. So tonight, we're going to talk about imagination. How many people in the SpongeBob generation can see what I'm doing right now in their mind's eye? Anyway, the SpongeBob generation. We are going to talk about imagination, but it's in a different context than most people are used to, because I think when people hear that word, what comes up in their imagination is this sort of like blue sky and dreaming about something, and maybe you're innovating. And that's true. That's what we use our imaginations for all the time. In fact, I would say that the subconscious and the imagination work together. And oftentimes, if you have a challenging problem or something that you're thinking about, just letting your subconscious and your imagination sort of marinate with the problem for a period of time will come up with sometimes a very innovative solution.
Mm-hmm.
But what the imagination also does, it sort of has a dark side. It allows us to imagine, possible outcomes to, let's say, a stressing situation, which may never happen, or in any case, even if they may happen, are not happening to us right now. Yet, because our imaginations are so incredibly powerful and so able to envision the outcomes of a particular set of actions or a particular set of circumstances, the anticipation or the imaginary effects can be almost more devastating than the actual reality. How many of us have lain awake at night worrying about something which may or may not happen? And you will literally, they say you walk the floor, you pace, you toss and turn all night, as many songs have cataloged. And in the morning or the next day, or when the thing actually happens, when we come to the reality, it very often doesn't happen as we might have imagined it. The loss of rest, the abrogation of our peace, was far more painful and more distressing, and probably inflicted more damage on your psyche and on your body even, than the actual event. It's not to say that you should just be Pollyanna and carefree and not think about what you might do in a particular situation, but it is to say that the amount of time spent on sort of worrying or using your imagination to envision a particular outcome can be time wasted and energy wasted, and certainly rest interrupted. And that's what our topic is about tonight. The quote that we're going to put up on the website, if it's not already there, is from our friend Lucius Ananias Seneca, the apple juice guy. and he's like super wisdom. Like, I'm not sure what's in the apple juice, but it's not just apple juice. Okay, this man is dealing with some powerful medication. but but his quote is very interesting, and I'll just read it. We are often more frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality.
Mm-hmm. No, this is true. It's easy to slip into a more fearful state because as humans we anticipate, and that's what we can do. Our level of consciousness allows us to think about things and project forward, as well as contemplate what happened in the past. But we all are programmed, all of us are programmed to avoid painful situations. It's just natural. But it's understanding that because you are human, you have the ability to not only anticipate what may come, but to qualify it, to look at it and say, well, this may really happen, and it may not. And after you've had some experience with life, you realize this quote, that you're really more frightened, more incidents of being frightened than actually being hurt. And to know the difference, because the distress that comes up from being frightened is the same body response. And we've spoken about this before, that the reaction, the brain doesn't really know the difference between an anticipated incident and the actual incident. Your body just kicks into a high hormonal reaction.
Yeah, cortisol.
High stress. So being frightened means that you are going into a stress state. Maybe that's one of the baseline things we've all got to realize, that when you are frightened, you allow yourself to go into stress. And being hurt, you are stressed as well. The difference being that you think that the physical damage that you may take is more
serious or consequential.
Yeah, more real almost to you. And therefore, you really anticipate that this is really going to happen, as opposed to looking at it and saying, well, this may happen. Let's just see what I can do. In fact, when you're trained to fight in the martial arts, you have to hold center. And the anticipation is understanding that, first of all, you are in a sparring situation or a fight situation, and pain is always an option. It can always happen, but so can your ability, your skill level to manage and avoid all of that. So in that kind of confrontational point where you know that you're going to have to fight, you really have to come to a very grounded position and a centered position, because you understand that the interaction between you and the other is going to happen. And there is this fluid dance that occurs. So it's an interesting perspective, because you have to be centered not only within yourself, but you're also, there's a center of motion, maybe. It's the best way to describe it, when you are interacting with another person. So you switch back and forth in that respect. Center of what's happening between the two of you, and then the center of your own body. Very interesting, because it's a spherical kind of awareness at that point. It's not just thinking about what you're doing. Like, no. Every part of me has got to be ready. So we are all focused on this.
And it's training. I mean, I want to go back a little bit, because what you said is exactly right. The anticipation of conflict when you're untrained can put you into a stress situation. It can put you into a situation where your body is shutting down before you've even been hit. You're starting to freeze up. The fear becomes an impediment to fighting.
Oh, well, that could be it's an option. Okay, to freeze up is also an option. Also, to run is another option.
Well, what I mean to say, though, if you're trained, as you said, in the martial arts, the centeredness and the training give you the ability to redirect the fear response, which is always there no matter what when you're going to conflict, and in essence use it as energy to power your reactions, to realize that in that dance between you and the opponent, between you and the person or thing that you're fighting, there is a center which is outside of both entities, and which you have to balance yourself around. The strike of the opponent has to be countered, but you know that their strike may go wide. They may not be able to hit you. There's not this, in fear, the enemy grows tall. It's like if you remember from the passage when the Israelites were attacking, were sending their spies out into the land, and they were trying to find out, what's going on out there. And they come back, they're all giants. There's no way we can fight them. This idea of giving the enemy all your power and making them seem much larger is all part of the fear response. It's like, we can't do it, becomes your mantra, instead of, I'm well trained, my fear is controlled, I'm going to face this enemy in the moment, and when their strike comes, I'm going to let my training give the appropriate response. Part of martial arts training is mastering the fear response and turning it into energy that can be used. And as you said, as you live your life a little while, you realize that the fear response, which is visceral and important for survival, is oftentimes the wrong response, because if someone frightens you, like in every Greek tragedy, you may do the thing which brings the disaster upon you. In reacting to a non-event, to a perceived or imagined event, you may bring upon yourself that which you were trying to avoid.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
And it's also, when, as another aspect of this, imagination and fear can be used to drive you towards an outcome that you don't want.
Mm.
One of the basic ways to control people, especially large masses of people, is to frighten them. And usually you're frightening them not with an actual threat, but with a perceived threat. If you don't do X, Y, or Z, A, B, or C are going to happen. So you've got to do something. So the got to do something is the opponent's actual goal. Not that they can actually do what they say they can do, but if they can get you to do what they want you to do by saying or convincing you that they're more powerful or more knowledgeable, more threatening, more whatever it is, you become the agent of your own demise. You actually have your own energy turned away from your ability to use it and into something which then harms you, like the stress response. Right? It's all of a one cloth. It's all of a one weaving. This idea of more often frightened than hurt is is in essence having your imagination or your fear, your anticipation of pain turned against you.
Mm-hmm. It's a psychological warfare at that point.
It can be, yes.
Yeah, but it's understanding that when you are facing something, all of you has got to be involved. And so it's understanding that that psychological aspect of you is something that needs to get integrated with the rest of you. It can't just be on its own, thinking in its own little corner, going, "Oh, if we do this, this is, and then if we do that, then that's gonna." And then that's a useless siphoning of your energy at that point.
Good.
And when you are taking stock, because when you are about to engage, you must take stock in what is actually going on in the moment. Okay, just practically speaking, you're looking at the field that you're going to be engaged in. Where are you physically? What kind of terrain is around you? What is the temperature? What is the weather? What kind of footing? What is surrounding me? Is this an ambush? Is this a one-on-one? And then who it is that you're looking at, and realizing that this is where, what is the outcome that I want? Is it actually winning the fight, or am I buying time? Is it, where does it fit? And you begin to realize that fear that rose in you in this, like, oh, I gotta do something. Instead of sitting there worrying about, well, I got to do something. It's like, no, evaluate. Take the snapshot. What is it? What else is there that I have not perceived? Because when you open your mind up in that spherical term, you take everything into account. The slightest of breezes, a certain scent in the air. Wait, that means that this certain thing is nearby. I'm smelling fire, etc. You just continue to take it into account. And that processor that you have in your head, you just keep feeding it information, and then suddenly it'll spit out like, be aware this is possible. Right.
It's very interesting because remember the old phrase, "Fear is the mind killer." That if you can make your opponent afraid, you've won more than half the battle. Because in fear, in harnessing their imagination, you control a piece of them. You also cause their focus to no longer be global. It's local, it's narrow, it's in fact it becomes singular, and you can direct it. If your opponent is afraid of your blade, they're not using their blade effectively. They're not using their body effectively. That training is a way of doing what you just said, is expanding your awareness so that you no longer have to worry about the responses to an attack or your attacks. Those things are at the level of your spinal neurons. They've been so trained into you. Now you can use your perceptions to see, to perceive the global battlefield, to see the situation, as you said, to allow the higher, to allow the energies that have been trained into you to be almost reflex responses, and to allow the higher to give you, I see 3 moves ahead on what my opponent will do. If you've frightened your opponent, you lead them. Your perceived threat will make them go here, and then there, and then there, and then you're the one in control, and you can, in essence, know where they're going to be by the fact that you frightened them into going there.
When someone's in fear, and you've gotten a fear response from them, it interrupts the ability to hold that higher viewpoint, because suddenly now they have to deal with their own personal fear.
Right.
And they come out of center.
Exactly.
they become not aware of the center of movement between the two, and they're mostly aware of the center of mass movement for their own body. But it's interrupted because the fear is there, and as an energy, it hiccups the flow.
Yeah.
And you can anticipate that.
It's almost like being able to, choke off a portion of their chi. Fear constricts you. Fear binds your energy into not a flow, but almost like a ball, almost like something that can't be moved.
A blockage.
So, before we go too far into the fighting aspect, people say, well, I don't fight for a living. I'm not a warrior. But our lives, as you mentioned before, through life, we are greeted with adversity, and we all have the imperative, at least from our inside, our visceral imperative, to avoid pain and to avoid these types of things which could hurt us. However, because of this idea of being more frightened than hurt, we can be acting against ourselves. In situations where there is a truth to the threat, yes, this could kill you, or this could take away, someone you love, or this could be, a disaster of whatever, financial or whatever, something that the imagination is like the ego in the sense that it takes over the story and it starts to tell you a story about what's going to happen. That story can be driven by fear, driven by the negative, driven by, in essence, the idea that whatever is attacking you is insurmountable, is undefeatable. No matter what I do, I'm going to lose. And so you end up, in essence, directing all your energies toward this anticipated or even fantastical. It's an imaginary thing. It hasn't happened yet, but you call it to yourself. I think that part of this, through life, you realize that in calling, in seeing something that could hurt you, and you in essence call it to yourself by focusing your energies on all these bad things could happen to me. You end up getting into a space where you feel like your life is over, or there's nothing I can do, or you can hear this despair mantra. It all comes from this focusing on the not real, on the not there, on the future, in essence.
And in focusing on that anticipated future, you're always focusing on this is bad. Instead of focusing on this is good, you can anticipate the future and say this is good in terms of how can I overcome? Overcome. I will overcome. How do I? And that is one of the main mental redirections that you get trained in when you are learning how to fight. I can overcome. How can I turn this? There is a way to block the strike and turn it around. Take the other person's energy and redirect it back at them at the minimum expenditure of my own energy. It's and once you realize that that's a possibility, because you have to admit that this is a possibility, that this can be redirected, this can be overcome. And it may be redirection, it may be blockage, it may be, there are many ways to handle whatever it may be. But to understand that, no, this is my mindset. My end goal is to win this fight. So, okay, movement.
I mean, that's like manifestations. versus calling in the negative versus calling in the positive. And I think you're right in the sense that, again, this is a technique which you can learn and teach yourself not to call in the negative. But I think even that is the other side of the coin. It's a better side of the coin, but it's still focusing on the future. You're now calling in an outcome which you like or want or think you like and think you want. But it is still the future. And I like it from the point of view of it's much better than wasting the energy on the negative. But I think people get lost in this idea of manifestation to the detriment of the now. I think the phrase that comes to mind is everyone has a battle plan until the first shot is fired. So the idea of that phrase is that, yes, you can imagine that you're going to win and you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and then reality, the actual moment of conflict begins, or the actual moment of whatever it is begins. And none of your imagination maps directly to, or even maybe close to, what actually happens. So I think you still have to call back and undo this kind of piece of you that you put into the future, whether it's a piece of you that you put into a negative future or a positive future, and bring it back to the now, to deal with it now, in the now.
Well, if you're actually fighting, if you're sparring with someone, you're in the now. There's no anticipating this. It's you are in a reactive mode, but it's been completely trained. So when someone's coming at you, what are you going to do? What have you been trained for? Are you doing...
I agree. But what I'm trying to say is, because our imaginations are quite powerful, we can move them towards a negative future and waste energy that way. We can also move them towards a positive future. And I say that's also in some ways a waste of energy, because how many times have you seen this where someone has put themselves onto this is going to be a positive outcome, and then in essence ignores the actual reality of what may be happening?
Well, that's different.
It is different, but I think it's seductive, and you see a lot of that today.
Yeah, what I see is a lot of people who think that they're actually fighting, that they're fighters, but what they're doing is just telling themselves another story. They never engage.
Exactly. So again, this idea of being, what Seneca has said, we're often more frightened than hurt. I could say that we are also often more, looking towards a positive future can also be detrimental to the now. Seneca's idea does call into the now. He's saying we suffer more from imagination than reality. We also can convince ourselves that something's going to be good to the detriment of the now. I think our focus, or the focus that I'd like to prosecute here, is that all of this, it needs to be put into its own little, that could happen, this could happen. I've now understood what my imagination is telling me, the good or the bad. Bring yourself back, as you said, to center and to now, and say, no matter what I think could happen, whether good or bad, is it happening right now? No. Right now, I have to deal with this moment, this instant. Whether I think I'm going to be attacked a moment from now or 10 years from now doesn't matter. It's the now.
Right. It is what you are engaged in at this moment. It has nothing to do with your planning but it has a lot to do with understanding that you can be put into a situation where it feels you can, in that moment, think, oh, this person's got the better of me. Okay? When you're in that back and forth, this person's got the better of me, but you are like, no. Overcoming that. Redirecting it. Center here, movement there. It's very difficult to describe it because it is something that you must be in to understand.
Well, I like what you're saying, because I think if you're doing that, then you've moved from what I believe you're saying is that in having the mindset of adapting and overcoming, it's still in the moment of now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a phrase from, I forget which branch of the military, but adapt and overcome. In essence, what they're saying is you have a plan. That plan is almost guaranteed not to be reality. In the moment of reality, you have to adapt and overcome towards your end goal. Your end goal is, I'm going to win this battle, let's just say. I have a plan on how to win the battle. The first shot is fired. That plan is gone. But the commitment to adapt and overcome means that my plan was only exactly that, a plan. It was maybe it'll happen this way. But what I've done is, in essence, prepared myself to adapt, overcome in the moment to get to the goal. So my plan gave me two things. It got my energy ready to fight, and I was able to focus and say, this is my goal. Everything from the moment of the attack to the end of the battle, whatever the outcome may be, I have committed my energy to adapt and overcome in the moment. Because as you said, each moment by moment, the path that I have to execute to get to my goal may change, probably will change. The actions I have to do will change. But I have now, instead of living in a fantastical future, whether it's bad or good, I'm in the moment of now with all my energies focused on two things: getting to my goal and adapting and overcoming the moment of now, the conflict of now. That's exactly correct, I would say. Because now the battle is being given to two things: your training and your commitment. You have the training that says I can fight, and you have the commitment to fight, to actually commit all your energies to the now. And then, as you said, the resources, the perception to say, that's not working, change it, do this, do that, use this part of my training, use that part of my training.
It's not a personal thing. You have to understand, because some people say, well, I trained all this time, and this technique is supposed to be really good, and how can I, it's like...
I'm using the technique, it's not working.
Yeah, and you just sit there, you're like, you're giving me a headache.
Well, let's do one thing. Since we're giving each other a headache, let's take a little moment, take a break, go back to the studio, and listen to some commercials and relax, and on the other side, we'll talk more about imagination.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book one of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Regardless of the size of your feet, you are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on ArtistFirst World Radio. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Regardless of the size of your feet. We do have imaginative lead-ins, and I have rather large feet, actually. We're gone. We're back. We're back. And tonight's show, we're talking about imagination. And you guys weren't frightened during the break, were you? Because we are back, so we're good. And I want to take this just a little bit different direction. We've been talking a little bit more about fighting, but I think what relates to people more viscerally is in the course of your life, you get you experience a certain threat. Something bad happens, something takes you out of the norm, takes you, in fact, to a place where you don't know what's going to happen next. So I think that's the basis of fear, and the kickoff for imagination is that when everything's going well, first of all, you don't know what's going on. But when everything's going well, we are lulled, I'd say the general we're lulled into this idea that we don't have to, anticipate that something bad's going to happen. In fact, it becomes sort of a psychosis if you do that all the time. But if things are going well, people are kind of like perfectly content to just let it kind of, veg out. The day is the same every day. I have my routine. Then something takes you out of your routine, and this, in many cases, with a lot of people, is either a health crisis or some sort of crisis. And there's an immediate fear response, and then there's a lot of people will fly towards this idea of looking for assurance. They look for an authority figure. Oftentimes in a health crisis, you're looking towards a doctor, and that you're trying to get from this person an assurance that everything's going to be okay. Or sometimes you're going to get from them, well, this could happen or that can happen. And it just feeds your fear. Oh, well, the doctor said this, the doctor said that. We had a very a personal experience with Christopher going into the hospital and being diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia, where all of our kind of everything was going along and what our lives were going to be like was changed in basically overnight. Through that experience, and it was condensed over 2 years, but condensed into sort of a phrase, we learned that none of that mattered. That what the doctors said would happen didn't matter. What we did, all the research and all the things and learning what it didn't matter. When when a certain event would happen and they say, well, this could happen and that could happen, didn't matter. What mattered was the moment of now. We became trained. We became experts in the disease. We became experts in the treatment. We became experts in what we had to learn. None of that really helped us except to understand that whatever crisis came up, we at least had the tools. But the thing that we really learned, and that Christopher knew and these kids knew almost from the very beginning, is that the day was sufficient. The moment of now, the waking up and looking at the ceiling and saying, I'm alive, that's good. What's going to happen next? I don't know. But today, right now, is good. And if something funny happens or something enjoyable happens, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to laugh. Something bad happens, I'm going to cry, and then I'm going to go on to the next moment. And that outcome, I believe, is the true, sort of end game of this imagination and frightening and hurt. You realize that nothing happens except in the moment. That being frightened about what might happen, or being told this can happen, that can happen, these are the odds for this, these are the odds for that, is nothing more than a giant shell game, which takes you off of the moment of now. Yes, it's very important to learn. Yes, it's very important to understand. And it's very important to get your training and be ready for the fight. But until the blow is directed at you, until it's coming at you, you're batting at illusion if you're trying to fight something which isn't there yet. And you're taking away from the moment of now. You're taking away from the, hey, everything's good. Let's have a cookie. Let's enjoy this moment.
Mm-hmm. It's something that children understand in terms of living every day and playing every day. Let's anticipate something fun or something good. And they learned fairly quickly to, okay, I got to get through this, but the sooner I get through this, then I'll have more time to enjoy myself. And it's a wonderful, practical way of looking at things instead of sitting there and wanting to plan it to the nth degree. Because one thing you always found as a parent on that ward, on the pediatric cancer ward, parents were always thinking and rethinking and triple thinking, what's going to happen? How can this be? Trying to figure it out. They get caught up in these eddies and flows of things where, well, what caused it? I should chase after what caused this, or all these different types of treatments, which treatment is going to be the best, trying to figure that out. And the little one, your child, is sitting there looking at you going, let's do this now, because I'm not going to have free time later. I have to go into this, either a treatment or a certain scan or whatever. But let's do this now. And what you saw was not all the parents were able to switch over and be with their child at that moment. They had more important things to do, like anticipating this or chasing after that thing that may have caused your cancer. It's like, well, okay, they have cancer now. You have to deal with what is happening now.
Exactly, now. And I think the other thing that they run into and spend a lot of time with the why me's. And
that's usually the first thing.
Yes, and the why me's are something that you learn very, very quickly to get. There's no why me.
Yeah, you got to get over that.
Why not me? Why not you? We had a lot of different personal experiences that I won't go into all of them, but you learn very quickly in adversity that you are equal to all others. We're all different. We're all individuals, but we all are subject to everything. We're all going to die. Everyone says, "Oh, we're all going to die." They just throw it off like a throwaway line. But in fact, we are all going to die. We're all subject to the vicissitudes of life. Things are going to happen, good things and bad things. We don't. We through our imaginations, we imagine nothing but good. When bad things happen, we start off instantly with a "Why me?" And the true learning that you get from this experience and from all experiences is, why not you? There's nothing about your life which is special in that way. The only thing that's special is the response, is the thing that you actually can control. Something happens. Things happen all the time. Suns explode all the time. Whatever. Things happen. It happens, unfortunately, to you. The why me is almost the very first thing, and then all the other stuff too. But the why me is such a ego just conceit.
Mm-hmm.
And the faster you can get to why not me, or let's not even worry about why me. Let's live here in the now. Because the why me is identifying. It's like, this is now me. Why me? Why are you taking the happy little me I had and making it different? No, you're not. You're not your cancer. You're not your disease. You're not your tribulation. You are you, the thing that decides how it's going to feel in the next moment, what it's going to do in the next moment. And all of you is focused on that. You can learn and become more skilled. You can learn and train and understand and have great depth of knowledge. But the point of living is, get past the why me and don't worry about things. Do what the children do. I'm not going to have time later because I'm going to have to do this, and that might happen, but okay. But right now, none of it's happening. Let's go do whatever. Color, cook, eat something, laugh, enjoy the moment, play the game, and then as you're sitting there playing the game and everything, and then the thing comes. I got to deal with the thing. All right, put the game to the side. Deal with the thing. Do it. Whatever happens, even if the outcome of the thing is you're dead at the end. But you enjoyed every moment of your life up to that. You had to deal with the thing, and maybe you die. But guess what? You lived up to the point. You lived through the thing. You came to the end of your life. Or you live through the thing, and you go back and do the next thing. You do the next coloring book. You do the next video game. You do the next poem, song, wonderful work of art, whatever it is, because the life is there.
What you find is that what matters most are the people that are around you, the ones that love you. It's not necessarily what you're doing, but it is being engaged in that relationship of showing each other how you care. The game or the plan to do whatever is only an expression of that love, that expression of love. It's understanding that moment to moment you choose what it is that you will use to express your love for another, or how that love is being expressed to you, the appreciation of how that love is being expressed to you. And in that moment, when you get that down, you become so humble because you realize where you belong in this relationship of love and how vast it actually is. and you happen to be the recipient of this vast love. It's a humbling experience because it doesn't matter necessarily what the expression is, how, like someone buying an expensive gift, whereas just being able to bring a favorite cookie to somebody is more than enough.
Well, it becomes egoless.
Mm-hmm.
The central thing in the why me is the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And what is frightened and anticipating and imagining is also largely the ego.
What I'd like to say is that question of why me is not necessarily what the children ask. It's what the parents ask.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
No, but I mean, just to be really clear,
Yes.
people are thinking the kid's sitting there going, oh, why me? It's like, no, you don't get it. They're watching their parents go, why? Why? You know, and it's really why me, according to the parent of I've got to deal with this. Why my child? As opposed to the child going, well, I got to deal with this.
Right. As you said, and this is part of all of our experience, as children, we understand the moment-by-moment preciousness of life. Nothing is more living in the moment than a 2-year-old. They just live in the moment. We grow out of that by feeding the ego, by living in the future and in the past. And then when, as I mentioned before, when we're going along, everything seems to be good, you're happily living in the future and the past, and you're not living your life. You're just kind of all over the place and ungrounded. And then reality comes in. And this why me is like, I was living in this wonderful fantasy future, and you're bringing me back to, you're harshing my mellow. You're putting me back in the actual now. And it's a reality check. You've heard those words, right?
Well, usually the parents or the adults are sitting there going, well, we were doing everything right.
Oh, that phrase. Say that one again.
No, we're doing everything right. We have the right insurance, and we've got the right doctors, we've got the great team, we've got the Nobel Prize winning procedures, and we are on the cutting edge hospital. We're doing everything right. We were living our lives right.
Yes, it's before even all that. It's like the why me is exactly. I was doing everything right. So haven't I, in essence, haven't I made myself better than everyone else, that it won't happen to me because I'm doing everything right? I mean, it sounds funny. You go, oh, no, I would never say that. Really? Yes, we all do that. And when you get taken out of it, there's this moment of injustice. I was doing everything right. And it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful, horrible opportunity to realize that reality doesn't care. And there's no such thing as doing everything right. That's all your ego saying that you've checked all the boxes and have the right insurance and do all the ego things. All that stuff gets broomed. Sometimes it seems viciously broomed. It's all like, wow, was I? And the revelation is, boy, was I wasting my time.
Well, if you get to that point, because usually people double down on their no. Yeah. Well, then there must be a right way to do this.
But why? Why they double down? Because it's so comfortable.
It's insecurity that they're trying to fight against.
Yep.
They want to believe that if they just find the right way, the magical way, then they can overcome this. And I can understand. You want to have your child be completely healed. I get it. But the reality is you're not in control. And that scares people.
But you are in control of one thing, and the only thing that matters, and we've said it many times, you're in control of what you will, how you will react to it. In other words, something happens. You have the one thing that you can control, which is how you will receive it, and how you will then put it back out to those around you who love you. The receiving of it is the why me is a way of receiving it, but it's the wrong way, in the sense of you're not using this opportunity to put back to yourself and to others that I'm going to receive this and be joyful even in the worst of circumstances. I choose joy. You can choose your reaction. That's all you get to choose, but that's the most important thing, is to choose the reaction.
The first step, though, is being able to discern the difference between doing and action. I'm doing it right, which means I've got to do another doing in order to make it right.
Well, yes.
As opposed to understanding that it is being in that moment. As you do have to make choices, but to be right in that moment, in the fullness of that moment, and understanding that there's something greater than this mental machination that's ping-pinging between my ears.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
go ahead.
It's taking that realization, understanding it's not another doing thing that I've got to do. I've got to do something. It's like, no. The doing part is creating more stress. You're getting more frightened, and you're frightening not only yourself, but your child, who's not really hurt at this point. Okay? Because that phrase, we are often more frightened than hurt, becomes even more frantic because the hurt is happening to your child. It's not happening to you.
Well, yes, exactly. And but I what you said just now was the most important thing. I mean, this idea of finding a new incantation, a new doing that will undo the doing that's happening to you now, is completely wrong. It puts you out even further. If I only would do another thing right, then this would all go away.
This action of trying to find another doing is basically what's happening is you're repeating the exact same pattern, doing, and expecting a different result.
Which is the definition of insanity.
Which is insanity.
Yes.
But you've got to realize it.
Well, yes, and I think that what you said also is the most important thing, is that you have to realize it, and realize that the only thing you have is that you can choose your reaction. I mean, people will say, and I think this is a fair criticism, is say, how can you be happy if bad things are happening to you? And I would say, with experience and love, is how can you not be? Because in essence, none of the things that are happening to you should be able to steal your joy. You're the only one that can give away your joy. Yes, you're being pummeled on all sides. You're being threatened with death. You're losing. Everything is crashing to the ground. It's still your life, and you still get to choose how you will react. And yes, you may not be happy. You may not like this. All those things are not going to happen. But you can choose joy, because joy is the moment of being and in existence, and realizing that this next breath is still not guaranteed, and that you don't know what the next moment will bring. And so choosing joy sets you up into that moment in the right way, in the sense that you are now not allowing any of these things that are happening to you and all these doings to define you. You choose joy. And people say, well, how can you be happy? I didn't say you'd be happy. I said you choose joy, which is a very different thing.
You can be frustrated and be joyful.
Yeah.
Well, most people don't believe that.
No, they don't.
You can't be frustrated and happy. You can be frustrated and joyful. And it's understanding that you can release your frustration by understanding that you are not controlling what is going on.
Yes, you release divorce. That's another show. But I tell you what, we have to wind this up, unfortunately. So we've reached the end of the show, and hopefully your imagination has been opened up. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.